Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Hello and welcome to the Four Top. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. Episode 60 is going to be very fun. In fact, we are already having a little cocktail at 11 a.m. and we just sat down. We are going to find out what a batch cocktail is today and how hard ladies have to hustle in the beverage business. And we're just going to have a really good chat. We are recording today at Freeland Spirits in Portland's Northwest District, which is one of the only women-owned and operated distilleries in the United States. So if you ever come to Portland, listeners, you've got to visit. It's really beautiful here. We will be hearing later from master distiller Molly Troop later on in the show. We are joined today by Maggie Hoffman, a food and beverage journalist and editor, and the author of 2 books on cocktails. Welcome, Maggie.
Thanks.
And Lee Hedgmon, a professional distiller, brewer, and co-founder of the She Brew Festival, which showcases female-identifying members of the brewing community. Welcome, Lee.
Hi.
And Cheryl Wakerhauser, master pâtissier, author of the book Modern French Pastry, and owner of Pix Patisserie and Bar Vivant in Portland. Hello, Cheryl.
Good morning.
All right, our first course is going to be delicious. Maggie Hoffman, your new book is called Batch Cocktails, Make Ahead Pitcher Drinks for Every Occasion, and you have made us a cocktail to try. So can you tell us what is a batch cocktail and what is this wonderful thing we're tasting right now? And I'm going to have a sip while you're talking.
You know, I wanted to bring something a little light since we are starting early, but a batch cocktail can be a few different things. The main point is that you're making it ahead and preparing drinks in advance for a group. So I think of it sort of as family-style drinks. So what we have this morning is a really light gin cocktail that's really refreshing for day drinking, sunny afternoon. It's fizzy. It has club soda and gin and lemon and clementine juice. And then the simple syrup that's in the drink is infused with dried chipotle peppers.
Wow.
So it's a little bit smoky. The book, Batch Cocktails, is organized by flavor profile because I think people know, like, oh, I like this kind of drink or that kind of drink. And so this one is in the savory chapter. It's not that spicy. It just has, like, a little bit of savory edge.
It is delicious. What do you think, Lee? You're a distiller.
I think it's delicious. I feel like this would probably take the place of my morning orange juice.
It's nice and refreshing for being 11:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you make the chipotle simple syrup?
Oh, it's super easy. You're just, if you're warming sugar to dissolve it in the water, you add 2 dried chipotle peppers and it infuses for about 10 minutes over the heat and then 10 minutes as it cools, and that's it.
It's so yummy. I love just a little pop at the end, little spice.
And I think if you were having a barbecue and you wanted something that sort of matches with a little smoky flavor, it would fit perfectly.
So, Maggie, what inspired you to write Batch Cocktails? A whole book about cocktails that can be mixed up in pitchers, right?
I think everyone loves cocktails. Nowadays, when you go out to a restaurant, you expect there to be good cocktails. And so sort of 2 things. One was that people at home aren't that comfortable with cocktail shakers. And in fact, cocktail shakers are kind of annoying if you're gathering a group of friends together. If I'm having a bunch of people over, I want to hang out with them and be present with them and spend time with them. I don't want to be in the kitchen fussing over a million little individually served drinks. So the idea was you make it in a pitcher, you get it ready before the doorbell rings, and then you get to actually spend time in real life, put your phones away, and have a drink together.
Do you guys think batch cocktails are feminist? I kind of had that thought because I feel like as a woman, I'm expected to do everything, cook and pour the wine and set the table, do everything, and I don't have time to shake cocktails as well. So what do you think?
I think they're efficient. And I'm a very efficient person. I like to get lots of things done, and maybe that's because I'm a woman. I'm very organized and like to get everything done that I can. But, for example, on New Year's Eve, you go into a bar, and maybe, Maggie, your book might be towards people at home, but also I see a lot of batch cocktails in bars, too. So New Year's Eve, there's tons of people waiting for cocktails. is to the advantage of both the customer and the bar to have batch cocktails just ready, just poured over ice, because nobody wants to wait 20 minutes for a cocktail.
Yeah.
Same thing like street fairs and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. It's really become common in a lot of cocktail bars because you might want to serve a cocktail that has 10 ingredients, but you only want to pick up 3 bottles. So you batch everything shelf stable in one, and you add your fresh juices, and you're ready to go.
Do any of your cocktails have beer in them?
They do, yeah. There's a few. There's one that's spicy, and you can add Kolsch Pilsner, so that's really refreshing. And I also have a non-alcoholic drink. In the back of the book, there's a section of non-alcoholic drinks, which I think are really important. I think these days there's so many reasons for people to be not drinking or drinking less, and being really welcoming to everyone who you're gathering is really important. So one of the drinks in the back of the book is a non-alcoholic shandy, where you have this non-alcoholic beer. I think is coming a long way, and there are more and more that are pretty delicious, but they're imperfect. It's a challenging thing to do as a brewer, wouldn't you say, Lee?
Yes. Well, and their process is different at that point.
Yeah, so one of those, I pair now non-alcoholic beer with a shandy mix that's made with kumquats. So it's really got the bitterness and tartness of the fruit, and you blend the whole thing up in a blender with sugar to make the syrup. And so it's a tart, bitter, really refreshing drink that kind of brightens. A non-alcoholic beer can be kind of dull and sweet, so it keeps it from being that.
Have you ever brewed a non-alcoholic beer, Lee?
No.
Have you ever mixed one of your beers into a cocktail? I feel like that would be like sacrilege, right?
No, we do it all the time.
Do you?
Yes. We have a group of folks, and that's what we do. We make beer cocktails.
I think beer can be great in a cocktail because it's not sweet. You know, if you start with rosé, you know, there's going to be this range of some of them are very dry and tart, some of them are going to be fruitier, and it's a little hard writing a recipe to adjust for that, and people at home need to taste and make sure, like, okay, maybe I need a little more lemon or whatever. Beer also obviously has a range, but at its base, it has this bitter backbone and, you know, malty flavors that it just can add a ton to a mixed drink.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you say about the differences in your ingredients? For example, the rosé, because I see a lot of cocktail books that mention sherry, or even cookbooks that mention sherry. And as we all know, sherry can be the driest wine in the world and one of the sweetest wines in the world, and everything in between. So you really have to say, okay, which type of sherry? And so any book that does not get into that kind of detail is not for me.
Yeah, really outdated.
Seriously.
I have a question about batch cocktails. Is it any difference if you're going to use fruit? So, like, you know, if you're going to make a margarita, let's say you're using fresh lime juice, and you want to shake it. Number one, to dilute it a little bit. I'm guessing I'm not a cocktail person personally, but also to kind of give a little frothiness. Can you make a good margarita in a batch cocktail, or are you kind of missing something because you're using the fruit?
You have to keep those things in mind. So the dilution is really important, not just to bring down the proof, but also to adjust the sweetness of the drink. So every drink in the book has dilution added, and that froth, the texture is really important too. So this book is actually a collection from bartenders, and some of them have you do things like batch it up in a bottle and shake it to get that froth in. Sometimes they have you toss it between 2 pitchers, but there are fruity drinks in here, and there are more sort of boozy stirred cocktails, which I think are especially nice for batching because they can be made really far in advance. The fresh drinks, it always says specifically, like, you're going to make everything except the fresh element and chill it, and then, you know, for these, I did it about an hour before. Your fresh juices range, you know, some people think orange juice is only good for about an hour. A lot of bars will, you know, same day is good enough. So I'm pretty nerdy about that stuff, and usually say, like, a couple of hours before serving, you're going to squeeze your lime juice. You don't want to squeeze lime juice the night before. That's not a good idea. Yeah, but that dilution thing is so key, and I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to show up at this party with a pitcher of Last Words, and you get it, and it's so strong and so sweet because they forgot that every cocktail you've ever had, one of the ingredients is water.
Oh. And, you know, I'm hearing kind of a theme here as well of kind of reducing the sugar, and I love that. I feel like that's going on with all beverages right now. And I feel like that's more food friendly too. You can pair it better with food, right?
Well, a really good drink should be balanced, and it should be not too sweet and not too tart, and sort of just the perfect balance between those. And if you leave out the water, you're not going to get there.
Huh. So interesting. Well, thank you. I think it's time to move on to our second course. Cheryl, this episode is going to go live right after an event you do called Pamplona de Portland, in which teams make bowls. You'll have to tell us what these bowls are. Run them to the streets of Portland. They're drinking Basque cider the whole time, and they end up at Bar Vivant, which is one of your businesses. I feel like you work overtime to like create this beverage community, bring beverages to people, educate people, and I just wanted to hear a little bit more about it.
Well, yes, I like a good beverage. Some of my specialty areas are champagne and I mentioned before sherry. This event that we're going to be doing called the Pamplona de Portland is a new event, and one thing I heard, you mentioned the word education, and I think that's really important because if people aren't educated, they don't know if what they're drinking is even of quality or served correctly. For example, sherry, you don't want it served in a copita, you really want it served in a white wine glass. So education is a key, and so when you make an event that's just not centered in a classroom setting with me standing there telling you about champagne, it becomes a whole different party. So Pamplona de Portland, this is the first time we're doing it. Basically, we're trying to get teams of maybe bars or restaurants, but anyone can join. And you dress in white like they do in Pamplona, running the bowls. We're going to make a little red scarf for you. And every team makes a bowl. Now, the bowl can be whatever you want. It could be a shopping cart. It could be a wagon. It could be a dog, a person. But it has to come some way resemble a bowl. And we're going to start at Bar Botelon and have some drinks, and then carry on about 1 mile to Bar Vivant, where we're going to end bowl contest, who has the best bowl, and a cider choch. So, the idea is like, oh, I don't know what Spanish cider is. Well, now you're going to know, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And it's also bringing a little bit of culture, the culture of drinking Spanish cider, because this is going to shoot outside of a barrel. We're not just going to pour it into a glass for you. You have to catch it.
I love how beverages bring people together. I mean, I feel like music brings people together and beverages bring people together in a way that food doesn't quite, because you kind of have to go off to your own corner and like hold your little plate and shove it in your mouth, but you can like interact and hold your beverage and talk to people and see something cool happening. I love that.
And of course, the alcohol gets people to open up a little bit.
Well, okay, that's true.
And the shouting, choch.
Encouragement.
What other events do you do that kind of educate people about beverages?
So one we do every year is our most popular probably beverage event is called the Bubbly Spectacular, and it's every December, and we open up 100 different sparkling wines from across the globe. So it's not just champagne. We also have Cava, Prosecco, Cap Classique, Sect. We represented, I think, 15 different countries this past year, and we encourage everyone to dress to the nines. There's a best dress contest, and actually we had kind of a dance-off this year, too. I did 3 outfit changes, and it's just a party, but people associate sometimes sparkling wine, champagne with being like formal and stuffy, and this is not anything like it. You can analyze the wines as you taste them as much as you want, but really people there to engage with each other, engage with the wine, and have fun and learn something.
Yeah. And you have won the World of Fine Wine's Best Champagne and Sparkling Wine list in the world. Award. How many times now?
5 years. Every year since they've started the awards.
That's cool.
So
amazing.
Last year they actually had their first award ceremony in London, so that was really exciting. I had a good feeling I was going to win because I won the first 4 years, but I wasn't sure. So to like go to London and go into this historical building and have them say, and the nominees are, and it's like Eric Repair, it's Les Créarans. And I'm just looking at the list, and for a second I was like, maybe I'm not going to win. And then they said, and the winner is Pig's Patisserie. So that was exciting. So yeah, it is, as a woman and as anybody who works really hard for something, it is really nice for someone to say, hey, we would like you to come and we want to recognize you, say your name in front of this group of people, and give you this crystal trophy that weighs 10 pounds. So when you pack your suitcase back home, take that into advantage.
And you were probably the only pastry chef there, right?
I don't know for sure, but yes, I probably think so, yeah.
Yeah.
What I do is kind of weird. I like to say Pix Bar Vivant is one of the weirdest restaurants in the world because we focus on French patisserie, and then we do have Spanish tapas for the savory element, and that kind of ties into the champagne list or the beverage list. So right now we have over 600 different champagnes, another 200 different sparkling wines, 160 different sherries. And why do we have all those? Not because bigger is better, but bigger is better when you're talking about champagne because it's been proven that champagne and Magnum taste better. That's a different story. But
Magnum being a double-sized bottle.
I like having all these options for the curious customer to come in. They've heard about something. Where are you going to find it? You're going to find it at Pix Patisserie Bar Vivant. You're looking for a rare cuvee or a rare sherry or a rare style of sherry even. I like to say, hey, we have that. Would you like to try it?
I feel like you're like doing backflips because you're making all these pastries that are so beautiful and educating people about sherry and champagne and have the best champagne list in the world. I feel like all of us who are trying to be in this business, we have to hustle a lot. Lee, you just came from a Shark Tank tryout. Can you tell us about it, or is it a secret?
Oh, it's not a secret. And if it was, I'd be the worst person to tell. I have no filter. Yes, I just did I'm a hustler for myself and everything else. I totally agree. Put on all these different hats and trying to meet the needs of everyone and everything around you. So yeah, I just did a Shark Tank audition for my business.
So, can you tell us what the business is? This is outside of your distilling.
This is outside of my distilling and brewing and beekeeping endeavors. I do barrel-aged honey. So I pair regional honey varietals with specific local distilleries' spirit barrels.
Oh, wow. That sounds delicious.
And age them. So it's fun, and it is delicious, and I love it.
What's it called?
The barreled bee.
I love that.
How long does the honey stay in the barrels?
Anywhere between 4 to 7 months.
Wow.
How does it change the honey?
It changes the honey in the sense that it pulls out a lot of the barrel character, but it also depends on what spirit is in there. So, and sometimes it changes it in very interesting ways. I like to say I'm a matchmaker. Sometimes I end up with a marriage, and sometimes I end up with honey and a spirit barrel that are just like, dude, we're just buddies kind of thing. Like, they're so very distinctive. And then sometimes I'm like, we're being invited to a wedding because they melded so well. It's like one being. And it just depends. Sometimes it's you don't want to go too heavy on the spirits, but you also won't want to go too heavy on the honey. It has to have good bones, and not all honey has good bones to handle being in a barrel for that long.
And so you make your own honey then?
I do. I am a beekeeper, but I do not make enough honey. I'm an urban beekeeper, so I really actually love the idea and the necessariness of having pollinators, whether they be honeybees or mason bees or sweat bees, creating a habitat that allows us to kind of flourish bees, and learning about them helps me demystify the scariness of bees and being stung. That's what it is.
Yeah, I can imagine
stung.
Your neighbors don't want you to.
I actually don't keep bees at my house. I keep them out in other places because I'm really interested in a terroir. Honey is like amber in the sense that it's a amazing snapshot of a terroir of a place and time and space that you can taste it. It's like you can taste history. I make honey I use honey for a lot of things, but I also do spirits, and for me, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Is trying to find a good barrel that's going to impart some amazing flavors that you weren't expecting. Like, there's one that tastes like a pumpkin spice old fashioned, if you can imagine that. So.
What about sherry barrels? Have you ever used those?
So
Those are probably hard to get the hands on.
Yes, it is, and they really have to be fresh. And by the time we get sherry barrels here, they're fairly dry, and they're not very. And wine and beer are not the best barrels because of contaminants.
So interesting. Maggie, are you thinking about honey cocktails right now?
You could see exactly what I was thinking.
It's something beyond the traditional bee's knees, because that's what everybody.
Oh yeah. Right. But I also think even just in a tea sweet, like an iced tea situation, so the honey could
Make
really
a faux,
shine.
They make an awesome faux toddy. So
Yeah, I love that idea.
Well, and this connects to the fact that we all basically have, well, I have 4 jobs. How many jobs do you all have?
Lee has a ton.
I'm down to only 3 now.
Do you count motherhood?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
Count that.
Then I have 5.
I think I do, yeah.
I just like to work for myself, so I just do a lot under one job.
But you basically,
Many hats.
you went to the World Sherry competition. You could just be Sherry.
We were
24/7.
runners up for the U.S. team for the Copa de Jerez. So next time, they do it every 2 years. Next time, now that I've been there, I understand how it operates. See, I just had to do a little research.
There you go.
Now I know what they're looking for. I'm going to kill it.
I think we all love working in this business, but you have to work really hard in order to kind of make ends meet in this very fun business. Would you all agree?
Absolutely.
It's hard to sustain living with passion.
Yeah.
I mean, if passion paid bills, I would be all paid up with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do kind of have to find a way to be creatively hustling, but also at the same time maintaining your life. And when do you sleep, Cheryl? That's what I want to know.
Actually,
And what are your dreams like?
That's the best part about my job. I go to sleep when I want, and I never set an alarm unless I'm going to the airport at 4 a.m. And I just let myself wake up. And my body needs more sleep than it needs more sleep. I mean, obviously, there's times when that doesn't happen, when I was opening the last restaurant and this and that. But if I can't do that, then something's wrong. Then I got to readjust. I got to look at what's going on. But when I do wake up, then it's off to the races.
So you don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to start baking anymore.
No, and everybody thinks that. So again, when I say my place is one of the weirdest places in the world, like, yeah, we have all this champagne, we have all this French pastry, and we open at 4 p.m. and we close at midnight. So what patisserie do you know has that kind of hours?
Right.
And the way that it's set up, once again, it's works great for me. We go in there, the pastry chefs go in at 8 o'clock. We leave at 4. At 4, we open the doors, the front of the house comes in, and they say till midnight. And then they go home, and then we come back at 8 a.m. So we don't have line cooks. Everything we do, the way I set it up, the whole concept is it's pre-made, ready to go, and some things need very minimal warming or frying. But for the most part, the front of the house staff can just take the item and put it on a plate and serve it. So it works well for me because I'm a morning person, not a night person.
Okay, that is something I never thought about with the tapas side or pincho. It's more like pinchos because they're the little tiny cold plates.
So pinchos, and so the tapas bars modeled off those in San Sebastian, and so that's kind of the Basque region. So they call them also pinchos or tapas, but they're supposed to be just a couple bites. And the idea behind also tapas is quality food, but you don't need a lot, like less more often. You know, when you go to Europe and you have a glass of wine, it is not a 6-ounce glass of wine. It's a 4-ounce glass of wine. And you have a little glass, and then you can go to the next bar and have another little glass. Less more often is how I say it. And then you come back to the States, and you're in the airport, and like, would you like the 6-ounce or the 9-ounce glass of wine? And do you want a shot with that? And you're just like, ah. Yeah. So we tried it at the tapas bar. You know, uses the top quality ingredients like the conservas and like canned white asparagus, stuff that's really delicious on its own, and do very minimal, like maybe a drizzle of really nice olive oil with really nice salt. That's kind of it. And so everything, you could have 20 tapas if you want. You can have 3 tapas. It's not small plates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is like a batch cocktail. You just have it ready to go.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's efficient. This is how we do it.
And you don't have to look for line cooks.
Well, do you guys want to try another cocktail? Because now it's closer to noon. Yes. All right. Well, I think we're going to take a little break and meet our sponsor for today's episode. And we're also going to invite Molly Troop over, who is the master distiller here at Freeland Spirits. Okay, well, now as we are getting ourselves cozy here, I'm going to tell you all about our generous episode sponsor, which once again is Shrub Small Barrel Natural Balsamic Soda. I think all of us here are beverage nerds, and we know the term shrub from the craft cocktail scene. I'm sure you know it very well, Maggie. Shrub is a bottled shrub that you don't have to make it at home. You can just buy it and make your own cocktails. It's just 3 ingredients: flavored white balsamic vinegar, coconut water, and lightly carbonated water. So the history of shrub is that it's a drink that originated hundreds of years ago before refrigeration, when people would keep fruit in vinegar so they could have fruit year-round, and then after they ate all the fruit, there'd be this delicious vinegar left over, and that was called the shrub. Did you all know that?
The dream of the 1890s is alive in Portland, right?
Yes, it's true. This is very true.
1790s?
Yeah. And I love the story, the company story, because company founder Aaron Wiest, actually to your point earlier, Maggie, about non-alcoholic cocktails, he is in recovery, and so he wanted a delicious beverage that he could drink at social occasions, and so he came up with Shrub. I just love that story. So what do we have here? We have Cascadia raspberry, coconut. We're going to get some lemongrass mint mixed with Freeland Spirits gin. And we have Cara Cara orange vanilla. So maybe everyone can give it a taste.
Oh, the coconut is so cool. I want to be on the beach drinking that.
And while you guys are tasting, listeners, I'm just going to let you know we have a deal for you. You can order Shrub online, and we have a discount for you. I know if you're like me, when you listen to a podcast, you're probably like driving or cooking, but put down what you're doing, look at your phone, and go to drinkshrub.com/the4top so you can get a discount on Shrub. You can order Shrub online, and they will ship it to you. And if you're local in the Portland area or the Pacific Northwest, you can get Shrub at New Seasons Markets, Green Zebra Grocery, Bales and Lambs Marketplace. You can find more information and get that discount at drinkshrub.com/the4top, and on Instagram, just drink Shrub. And we have Master Distiller Molly Troop here with us. Welcome. Did you try the Shrub with your gin?
I have not tried it with the gin yet. I've actually just been trying it by itself. It tastes very healthy, but maybe I should give it a try with the gin. And the gin is paired with the lemongrass mint.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
All right. Well, now that we're all super happy, I guess we can move on to our third course. Lee Hedgmon, just back from your Shark Tank audition. In addition to founding the She Brew Festival, you were the first female president of the Oregon Brew Crew. You have a PhD in feminist studies as well, so I'm going to ask you to kick off our next topic.
Okay.
Why is it important for women to support each other in the beverage industry, and did you learn anything as a feminist studies PhD that kind of informs your work now?
So I would say early on, as a brewer and as a home brewer, it was always the case where people think they know what you're doing, but they don't, but they just assume that because you're a woman you don't, or that you're not the person that you want to talk to. It happens. I could be wearing a shirt that says that I'm the distiller. It actually says distiller on it. It's the company shirt. I'm standing there ready to talk, and I think I heard this conversation, it's so regular. Someone will come up and they're asking the person that I was just talking to who just stopped to chat.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that they happen to be a guy, and so they're like, oh, you can answer my question. I was having a conversation with a brewer, and a person comes up, and his shirt clearly says brewer, mine says distiller. And they're like, can you answer his questions about this still? And he's like, no. And he's like, but it's those kinds of moments. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I love this, is the fact that women and people of color tend to approach me more. Mm-hmm. And I find that that's motivating for me. Mm-hmm. As a teacher, when I was teaching, the big thing was for students was they didn't know something was possible until they saw someone who looked like them there. And I think that's the case with a lot of industries. Sometimes you need to see what's possible to have it opened up that is a possibility. And it's as stressful as it is to be somebody who's the forefront of that, who goes, I didn't see anybody who looked like me, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. At the same time, there's a certain bit of responsibility knowing that that's going to happen. And I try to not take it lightly. At the same time, it can be a little mentally draining. And that's where a lot of the events that I've worked on and the push to do, to create the fact that everybody should have a place at a table and a voice in the choir, otherwise it sounds off, you know. No one wants to listen to a bunch of baritones. Sometimes you got to have a soprano and an alto in there. And so it's been fun, but it hasn't been easy, and it hasn't always been pleasant. I often will have, I don't do it very often anymore, and I don't have to, but I've had to on occasion literally confront someone and say, when you were talking about, say, for example, that beer to that person, you had glowing remarks. They say, oh, I didn't make it, she made it, and suddenly you want to give me a critique. I said, do I need a penis?
Yeah.
Because we can figure that out if you like. You know, if that's really the important thing, if that's the only thing that makes a difference between your liking and disliking something. And when people are challenged on it, they're like, if you laugh it off, my grandmother used to say, you can say almost anything to people. It's no matter how crazy if you smile.
Yeah.
And it can either spark off a really good conversation about what that looks like and what's going on there, and people's preconceived biases, or it can go horribly wrong, and you have to be kind of prepared for it. I haven't had it go horribly wrong in a number of years. I think, as my husband says, my pitch is a lot better now. One of the things is not focusing on what we can change, but focus on how to support the folks who are already in it, in the trenches and doing it, and that's what She Brew was for. There were so many women coming up in the brewing industry in Portland that we were wanting to do a fundraiser for the Human Rights Campaign. And so we said, let's do a beer festival. They're like, one more beer festival in Portland, can we handle it? Mm-hmm. Yes, we can handle it because this is really unique. The first year we did it, we had only 10 home brewers who were all women, and everything else was commercial breweries that were friends who just donated. Last year was the first year, 2018 was the first year that we had 22 commercial breweries, cideries, meaderies, and every commercial person that made that was a woman. It was 22. Awesome. This year, 40. So we had 34 commercial this year and 10 home brewers, and they were all women. We did a homebrew competition, and last year we had 106 entries, and I think this year we had 129 entries, all women.
Nice.
And it was amazing and beautiful, and the ability to be able to, it's not about celebrating difference, it's about acknowledging and celebrating the folks that have been working hard to produce something that you're drinking every day and you really love.
Yeah.
We also get the chance to talk in real talk, because we had Bloody Marys in us. We didn't they batch them, I think. It was like, yes, they make their homemade Bloody Marys. Like, we get to talk about real things that happen and how to problem solve. And whether or not something is very much in our imagination.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or something that's really happening, and people can say, how do we turn this into something very positive and something that moves us forward? How can we have very real conversations about sexism that's rampant, misogyny that's rampant, racism that's rampant, with people that have good hearts but may not be aware of the things that come out of their mouth in the same ways.
Well, I want to turn to Molly quickly and hear a little bit. I mean, wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your training in Scotland. Mm-hmm. You went to, was it a master's degree program in distilling in Scotland?
Yes, it was a master's degree in brewing and distilling.
And how many women were in that program?
It was the highest percentage that they had ever had, and it was 10 out of 40 students were women.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to be a part of. It led to a lot of different connections that I still have today, and a lot of visibility where I can see other women in the industry, in distilling in particular, who are kicking some butt. I had a lot of friends that just, they've done some great stuff and were very inclusive at the time.
I feel like you're maybe a little younger than me.
I might be. I'm not sure.
But I'm really happy to hear this. This is wonderful. I'm like thinking of the wine industry when I started out, and it was tough. It was tough.
So when were you in Scotland studying?
2012. There was people who were available to me where 10 years ago that might not have been the case, and most of those people were willing to talk, which is also a pretty great thing about our industry.
When I was in France studying patisserie, that was 2000, and there was a total of 2 women in the lab, and I was one of them. It was interesting. When I first arrived, they're just like, okay, you go in the chocolate lab and let the men do the pastry. The reason why I was in the chocolate lab, because that was where the other woman was. And it took about 6 weeks for me begging, basically, like, when do I get to do the pastries? When do I get to the pastries? Before they said, okay, you can do the pastries. And one of the reasons why they did not want me in with the men is because when I arrived in the morning, I arrived after everybody else. And it's traditional in France to give bisous, like little kisses on the sides of the cheek. But I didn't know that because I arrived after everybody else had already been there. And so I would just walk through the pastry shop to the lab, to the chocolate lab, and say, "Hi, everybody, bonjour." And they just thought I was, stuck up or something because I wasn't giving them kisses. One day, somebody explained, you really need to give them the bisous. And after that, it was a whole new world. And oh, Cheryl's here, yay!
I never felt like I didn't have the same opportunities, but I'm also not one to listen to someone telling me I can't do something, so that might have something to do with that as well.
I think across a lot of different industries, there is a thing happening where women are, radically transparent with each other and will say, this is how I did this is who to talk to, this is who's good to work with, or this, I think that the more that happens, the more women find their way into the positions they want to be in across, whether it's journalism or distilling or restaurants or whatever it is.
Yeah. Do you find, Maggie, when I hate to say this, but when I think of a mixologist, I think of a guy with a shaker. Do you find that that's changing?
Suspenders.
Yeah, and with a beard.
Yeah.
There's a great bartending competition called Speed Rack that 2 amazing bartenders in New York started, and they raise money for breast cancer research. And it's been a great way for women to connect and also get a lot of publicity and sort of be more visible in the bar industry. So I think people know to hire these people who have this amazing background in the classics and can also do this crazy quick bartending. So I think that's been a major mover in the industry, and they're across the country and I think around the world now.
Well, there's actually one other Bière de Femme that's in South Carolina, and they have their all-women brewers, and they have their festival the same weekend that we have ours. So we try to team up and, push each other.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's because they don't believe it, even though it's in print and on the internet and pictures and websites and everything. It's a real thing. I even have a crystal trophy to show you.
Yeah.
But when you would walk up to anyone downtown Portland and say, okay, what city do you think has the world's best champagne list? No one's going to say Portland. But I made it happen, okay?
Yeah.
But I really think people they can't wrap their heads around that it could be possible.
I think that gets back to what Lee was saying earlier, where someone's looking right at you and you're wearing a T-shirt that says distiller.
Exactly.
It happened to me too.
I mean, I feel like early in my career, but still, I have people over-explaining things to me because they can't believe that I would possibly know what they were talking about. And I'm kind of like, this is what I do, so you don't need to talk to me like I'm a child,
Yeah, I've taken tours of sherry bodegas and stuff, and they want to start with okay, this is how we make sherry. I'm like, okay, tell me about what you do here, what makes you unique between all the other bodegas.
Cheryl, I totally identify with what you say. Sometimes it's hard to know what's condescension and one's just blanket, this is how I would give this to anybody that walks in. Mm-hmm. And that's where, for me, it's always been about give someone the benefit of the doubt and then let it go.
Well, I am really sorry to have to cut this conversation short, but we're already over time, so we have to keep moving here so everyone at Freeland Spirits can get their space back. But normally we do a little dessert where we go around and each panelist shares a little something they've been enjoying this week, but I'm going to mix it up this time because this episode's going to go live in early May, and there will still be time for people in Portland to come into Freeland Spirits and try this special cocktail because, and Molly, if you want to jump in, please feel free. There's a cool program here called the Free Spirit Award, in which Freeland names a cocktail after a person who's doing something really wonderful in the community, and proceeds from the sale of that cocktail go to the cause. So everyone should come in here. I think there'll only be like a week or a week and a half after this goes live, and order Schweta's. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
Molly? Schweta's Old Fashioned, and you will benefit the Coalition for Communities of Color and honor Dr. Shweta Murthy, who works her tail off to dismantle institutional racism, eliminate socioeconomic disparities, and redress inequity of services experienced by communities of color in Oregon. So special thanks to everyone for being here today. Maggie Hoffman, beverage journalist and author whose newest book is Batch Cocktails, Make Ahead, Pitcher Drinks for Every Occasion. Thank you for being here, Maggie.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for being the incentive for this episode. Lee Hedgmon, distiller, brewer, activist, founder of She Brew, and Shark Tank slayer of her honey business. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Cheryl Wakerhauser, beverage superstar, author, patissier, and owner of Pix Patisserie and Bar Vivant. Thank you for being here.
No problem.
And Molly Troop, master distiller at Freeland Spirits. Thank you.
Happy to have you guys here.
Today's episode was recorded in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon, at a woman-owned, woman-operated business called Freeland Spirits that you should check out. Thank you, Keelan King, at the end of the table, for being our awesome audio engineer today. Alex Ward is our editor. Izzy Kramer is our assistant producer. Special thanks to OPB sound supervisor Stephen Cray and the web staff at OPB who bring our show to life on the Oregon Public Broadcasting website. Our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer Kermit Lynch. And finally, special thanks to our show sponsor, Shrub. And remember, folks, if you go to drinkshrub.com/theforetop, you get a discount on these really delicious beverages. Please check out our website, theforetop.org, to learn more about us, listen to back episodes, and please, please, please reach out to us on social media. We love you, listeners. Goodbye.
Nuit blanche, nuit blanche.